Hello guys again, this is our second lecture in loops in Java. So the previous lecture we talked about the for loop, how can we define a for loop, and the for loop would be our choice if we know in advance how many iterations that we would like to do, and the header of the for loop, as you remember, we could initialize the loop variable and assign the expression that would terminate the loop, and this loop variable should be updated in order to reach the final destination and to walk from the initial and start point, which is the initialization of the loop variable, to the end variables. The concept again, this is what is iteration, that's what we talked in details in the last lecture. Before we going ahead and start here with another concept or another type of loops that we talked before about the for loop, and today we would like to talk about the second type, which is a while loop. Before we going with that, we would like to differentiate between plus plus I and I plus plus. Are they really the same or they are different? If you put that at the header of the for loop, they don't do any change. They would act the same. But if you do that in an assignment like this, x equal plus plus y, that would be different. Plus plus if preceding the variable. That's mean here. So you increment I, then you return the update value of I. What does that mean? That means the incrementation preceding the value of I. For example, if you set x equal plus plus y, and the value of y is 0, and the value of x is 0, if this one is executed, the value of x will be updated to 1, and the value of y will be updated to 1. So I increment y. So in both cases, this is incremented the y. Plus plus y and y plus plus. In both cases, y value of y will be changed, but the returned value to this assignment at the left hand side will be different. If this one is preceding, that's mean you increment y and return the updated value to x. So here, if you output x and y for sure will be 1, and x for sure, if this is the case, will be 1 too. But here, if y again is 0, and you said that, so y plus plus, the value of y will be updated for sure, but x will not update it because you return the value of y, then you do the increment. So return I value, then you increment. So here, if you output the value of x and y for sure will be updated to 1, but x here will not update it to 1. The value of y in the first case 1 and 1, second case will be 0 and 1. Very quick, let me check that. Here, the enclaves here. So here, I will say integer, for example, I equals 0 and integer x equal 0. And I will say x equal I plus plus. And I would like to output system.out here dot print value of x here, and again let's make this ln, and again I would like to output the value of I. So what do you expect here? If I run that, value of I will be updated anyway, so value of I here should be 1. But what about the value of x? If this one come after the value, so value of x will not update it. X will remain as 0 and I will for sure update it. That's because if this come after that, so I said put inside x the value of I, then increment I. But here, if I said plus plus I, that's mean increment I, but inside the value of x, the incrementation of I. So here, both should be updated. So that's just because before we go and went through, then the same before I forget, the same for minus minus I and I minus minus. Now, let's start with our new topic of loops, which is while loop. And while loop, do the same like for loop. If you decide to repeat a set of statements number of iterations. But while loop is my choice if I don't know in advance how many iterations, and I will depend on the user to enter a certain character or number to end or terminate the loop. So this is would be my choice. If I know what I'm saying now, for example, let's talk about for loop. Is what I'm saying that for loop could not be used if I don't know in advance how many iterations? It could, but I should do some modification. We'll say that for the next lecture. But I'm saying the easy selection. If I know in advance how many iterations is for loop, for I equals 0, I minus less than 5, I plus plus, easy to define. But I can use while loop, but I will do some modification to do that. If I don't know in advance how many iterations and I will depend on a user to input something to terminate the loop, I will choose while loop. That's easier for me. And that doesn't mean I can't use 4. I can use 4. But I would have to do some modification to make it usable here. So let's go with a while loop. While its structure is like this, while, and you put the expression, this expression to remind you is the expression if true, you go inside here, the loop body, and execute. If not true, that means you go here after the exclamation equal into false. So this loop body is executed if this expression is evaluated to true. Execution jump to the while loop again. After execution this one, we'll go back to while to execute. To be aware, if you have a kind of expression you would have inside the loop to keep updating this one in order to at some point get out of the loop. What does that mean? Let's see. So for example here, without details we explained in the lecture about what's going to happen here. You should trace this program and know what exactly happening here. But what I'm care about, this while loop, sorry about that. This while loop here, it's saying while user character equal y. That's mean this body of the loop will keep executing as long as the user character value is equal to y and the user character is initialized to y. So it will enter here. But at some point I would update this one in order to at some point get out of the loop. For example, I said here type y any other to quit, and I get a value from the user using next and character as 0. So I keep taking input from the user. So as long as user enter y, I'm inside here. If not, if enter anything else, so this loop will terminate it and I go to goodbye. So what happened, guys, if we remove this one and I'm not updating this variable inside the loop, if we remove this one, the value of user character will keep equal to y forever and it will remain inside this loop forever. Is this correct? So if I use this while loop is a straight forward using of while loop, if I don't know in advance how many iterations here, I will terminate the loop if the user decide to enter any character other than y. So I don't know in advance how many iterations, maybe 5, maybe 6, it depends on the user. Well, terminate it. But please don't forget to keep updating it here. Otherwise it will go to infinite loop. Another example here. For example, this while loop, what I'm caring about, while user character equal y. So as long as user character equal, which is y here, so I enter here, I will execute this one. What's it just multiplied the count power, which is 2 by 2. So it will be 2 by 2 will be 4, and it's keeping to do what here? To do the update. So for example, user enter 2, it will output what? User enter, sorry, user the output here as execution, so it's print whatever inside current bar, which is 2, so this 2 will be output. Then count bar multiplied by 2, it will be 4. Then I taking input from users, user enter y, so I'm inside the loop, checked it's y, yes, so it's printed the 4, then multiplied will be 8, and then user enter a character. Is this y? So checked, yes, it's okay. So printing, which is 8 here, and then multiplied 8, count power by 2 would be 16. And I accepting input from user, user enter n. So if user enter n, I check that this is not executed, so this 16 will not appear here, and I go out to done. And again, what happened if I don't have this one? What happened if I don't have this one? I will keep inside of this loop forever because user character variable will not be updated. So now please update the condition variable at the end variable at the end of the loop. This is really, really very important. Okay, another example here. While Mrs. is here using numerical, so the termination of the loop, I don't need to update it here because it will reach, so it's similar to what's for loop doing. So here I'm getting an input from the user, and as long as this input is greater than 0, I will executing this one. And here this is updated, and I updated in a way to reach 0. As you see, user number is divided by 10, so each time it divided by 10, less, 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 until reaching 0. For example, if this divide, guys, is replaced by multiplying, so user number will increase, not decreasing. So it will never reach y, and I need to reach 0, sorry, and I will forever stay inside this loop. So it's very important. Yes, you make a condition here that you terminate the loop and get you out of the loop up to here, down to here. But be aware that you have to update this condition. You keep updated to reach this one. Either you have an input from user, like a character or anything, or you make some operation here to update it. So this is an example for infinite loop. You have to take a look about that yourself. Okay, so before we go to for loop versus while loop, I would like very quickly here to, so that's what we did. I will remove, I will just keep this one, keep one of them to use. So I will say, for example, character x equal y, okay, sorry, equal y, and while x equal y, I will, for example, like system.out.x, let's leave it like this. What's going to happen here? It's going to happen that x, is this a capital letter? No. So while x equal y, is x equal y? Yeah, you initialize it as y. So I will execute it and output the value of x, which is y. And then I go back here to check the condition. Is x equal y? Yes, it's equal y. Nothing changed. Nothing made updated to this one. So if I run that as you expected here, I will keep output y forever. So what should I do to terminate this loop? At some point, I should update the value of y by getting something from the user. Or I can simply, if I said it's d, what's going to happen here? For example, so x equal y, yes it is. Printed y, yes, it's printed y. Then x is changed to d. Next time when I check this condition, it will not be satisfied, and I will go where? Down here, let's say x. So what's the value of x will be here? So it should be d. So the execution of this program, I should output the value of x, which is y, then x is updated to d. Though this one is not valid anymore, it will go down here and execute this one. The value of x is changed to d. So what I'm expecting is I should have y, then I have d. This y is the execution of this one, and this d is the execution of the outer one. Okay, if I would like to keep the loop many iterations, so I should do like sc dot next dot character at 0. So I keep taking an input from the user. So here, if I run now, it will update y, and it's waiting for what? It's waiting for an input from the user. If I input y, I will keep giving y. If I input y, I will keep giving y. If I decide to input h, loop will be terminated and h will be appeared as execution of this one. To be sure, I will just doing like here. Here x. Okay, so if you run that, you have y. Enter y, you will have y. Enter y, you will have y. Enter u, you will have u, and you have m here and u. Sorry about the spaces. If I didn't do that here, I will not get out of the loop. So I should keep updating this one. This is if it's characters and input from user. What about operations? Yes, you can do that. I can say this, change this one to integer, for example, integer x equal 10 while x, let's say, greater than 5, and here x equal x minus 1. So now I'm sure that x will start as 10 and 9 and 8 and 7, and if it's 5, I get out of the loop and 5 will be updated here or output here because I kept updating this one using an operation. And be sure it's minus because I start at 10 and I would like to reach 5, which is less, so this one would be decreased or divided. It couldn't be plus and it couldn't be multiplied. Can it be multiplied? If it multiplied by 1, it will be 10 forever. Multiplied by 2, I will increase the 10 to 20, 40 forever. I will not reach the 5 at all. Okay, so this is about the while loop. While loop versus for loop. Can I use while loop or for loop to do exactly the same thing? Yes, I can do that. But at the beginning here, what's the difference between for and while? As I said before, number of iteration is computable before the loop, like iterating n times. I know the n. So it's easy for me to select for. It will be easy to implement it. But it doesn't mean I can't use while. I can use while, but I will do some modifications. So why? Go with for exactly. And here for while, number iteration is not easily computable before the loop, like iteration until the user input and character. So it's easy for me, if this is the case, I don't know how many iteration, and I will wait for the user to enter something, so I will go with while. Is this clear? I go with while. Okay, and again, it doesn't mean that I can't use for. I can for sure use for, but it will not be straightforward. I have to do some modification to do that. And here in for loop versus while loop. And a very popular question in programming, if I bring you a for loop and I said, how to transfer it to while loop. It's very easy here as for loop, it can do the same thing. Now is the condition is, or the case is, this scenario is, number of iteration is known from the beginning. I know I would like to iterate 5 times. So it's straightforward to set I equals 0, I less than 5, I plus plus. In while loop, I can get this one from here to here, but initialization, which is done at the header of the for loop, should be done before the while loop. And here, this is expression is its location, and the updating it, which is as a header, should be done inside the loop. So in order to make while loop do the same like for loop here, I would like to I will have to initialize at the beginning of the loop, before the loop, and then expression is the title of the loop here, and then the updating should be done inside the loop. Okay, this is a program, but before we go with this program, I would like to do that. So if I have, for example, let's say integer I would like to iterate 5 times. So for I equals 0, I less than 5, I plus plus, let's take the value of I and just print it out here. So this is I, so now it's iterated 5 times. this is the value of I, will be iterated from 0 up to 4. In order to make the while loop do the same thing, yes, I have x less than 0. Let's say it's integer x less than 0, but you have to initialize x before the while loop. So we said x equal 0 here, which is this one at the header of the for loop. You did it in the case of while loop before the loop. And you print the value of x, and here you have to update the value of x again inside the loop. This at step number 1, step number 2, step number 3, which were at the header of the for loop. That's why we said if you know in advance how many iterations, go directly with 4. Yes, you can do it use while, but you have to do some modification here. I will comment this bar. I will have the same output here from 0 up to 4, and again from 0 up to 4 using for loop and using while loop. Okay, I will remove this one and I will go to this demo here. It said write a program to calculate the average. Remember, the average we did using the for loop is the average of a sequential input list. The program stops when the user enters 0. So here, previously we said it will do n iterations. So I asked the user how many variables, how many input you will input, and then I made a for loop starting from 0 up to n, the number, and I keep asking the user about the input, and I'm doing the summation and the average. What's the difference here? The difference is the program will terminate at not a predefined number of iteration, but when the user enters 0. So let's start with that. Our choice here will be for sure is to doing using while loop. So here I will say, for example, integer x equals 0 and while x not equal 0. 0, right? Yes, 0. So while x not equal 0, and if you remember, I will define double sum equals 0. We said the summation variable should be initialized as 0. But here, I cannot initialize x as 0. If I said that, I will not be inside that loop, right? Right. So initialize x to anything else. Let's say 2. I don't care. And at the beginning, I will start, set x, sc will start to receive an input from user x dot next integer, and I will say sum plus equal x. Let's get out of that here. So take a second and think about that. So while x is not equal, is x equal 0 now? No, because it's 2. I initialize it as 2 just to enter here. Then I start to ask the user to enter or wait the user to enter an input. This input, user input for example 1. So it will be added to sum, right? And again, this x is equal and not equal 0, so I will ask or wait the user to enter another one. Let's be more professional and write here, print out like enter an input. If 0, I will terminate. You have to make the user forever aware with what he should do as programmer. You ask the user, enter an input, for example, to sum, or to be more formal, 0 here to terminate. So whatever the user is entering, if it's enter, it will be overwrite inside x. If the user inside a value, it will be added to sum. If the user inside entered x, it will be added to sum, which will have no effect because 0 plus anything is the same thing. And next time when it checked here, it will get out of the loop. I would like here to have the value of sum. Let's see. Now, okay, so let's run that and see. Enter an input to sum or 0 to terminate. Okay, 2. Enter an input to sum or 0 to, okay, 3. So 2 plus 3. Okay, now I'm entering 0. So the value should be as 5. Enter 2 plus 3. Is that okay? I use a while loop. I keep updating the value of x here by entering a value as we learned. But I face a problem here to compute or to calculate the average. I should count because the average is sum divided by the number of input the user entered. So I have to count how many input the user entered and so to divide it by. So in order to do that, the first straightforward thing is to initialize a counter and initialize it to 0. And you keep adding here counter equal counter plus 1. You now, for each time the user enter an input, you increase it and initialize by 0 in order to start from the beginning, from the first one. So the value of counter here, let's here said sum plus counter. So I am entering output the value of sum and the value of counter because I do have a problem here I would like to point. So what is the problem is, here enter a value 3, 4, 5. How many values I entered? I entered 3 values. Now I'm entering 0. And I will have the sum is 16. So sorry, let's not go into this one as detail now. Let's do it in 2. There's an explanation to what happened, but it's not for now. We will talk about that later. So let's redo that. Okay, so it's here 2, 3, 4, and 0. How many inputs actually inside the sum? 1, 2, 3. But if you run that, you will have 9, which is actual. 4 plus 3 is 7 plus 2 is 9. But here, surprisingly, you find the number of variable as 4. But actually, it should be 3. And that happened because it counts the value of 0. The counter is still executed when you entered 0. When you entered 0, counter still counting. So if you said sum divided by counter here, it will not be correct because you will divide it by 1 extra. So how can you deal with that? You have 2 things to do. The very simple thing is to do like this, counter, because you as a programmer, you know that, -1. So I'm okay. I know that I have an extra counting value, which was the 0. I don't like to include it inside here, the average. So now I'm safe. I can run 2, 3, which is 5, and 5, which is 10 divided by, now 0 to terminate, 10 divided by 3. It should be 3.3. Or I will not. I can use if statement here. If the entered x equals 0 are not equal 0, you do the counter. And this is a good chance to say what we said at the lecture. The keywords like while and if. You should have a parenthesis to know the block or the body of it. But if you don't, this will be executed in only one sentence, the following one. So I'm okay here. I can do I can here just remove the -1. I'm sure now, if you would like to, let's see, output the counter 2. So I'm sure now that this, when I enter 0 at the end, counter will not be executed and count. So if I enter that 2 and 3 and 5 and 0. So here 3.3 and the counter value is 3 instead of 4 because this if is executed. So you have either to do that. Okay, I think that's for today. For the while loop, how to use while loop, when you select to choose, you decide to use while loop or for loop. Thank you guys.